I never thought I'd live to see the day I doubt my own wife. For nearly 8 years, we had what I thought was a solid marriage. Not perfect, nothing ever is, but we were good. The kind of good that made you believe in forever. We started from scratch. Tiny apartment, shared bills, cheap takeout on the floor because we couldn't afford a table yet. She was my best friend, my partner in everything. I loved her deeply, I still did, even then. She traveled a lot for work, marketing, conferences, pitches, client dinners. I never once questioned it. She was always upfront, or so I thought. Told me where she'd be, how long, what hotel, sent pictures, voice messages, said she missed me, and I believed every word. Until that night, it was a rainy Thursday. I remember because I'd just gotten back from the office, soaked and irritated, and the apartment felt unusually cold. I was on the couch, flipping through channels I wasn't watching, when I heard the front door open. She walked in, laughing at something on her phone. She looked happy, too happy. Not tired, not drained from a business trip. Hair a little messy like she'd just been in the wind, expensive coat, a new one I hadn't seen before. She saw me and smiled wide, glowing. "Hey, babe," she said, walking over, dropping her suitcase like it weighed nothing. "I missed you." She kissed me, lightly, quickly, then picked up her phone again like she couldn't wait to get back to whoever was on the other end. I didn't say much that night, just watched her, the way she moved, the way she looked at the screen and smiled. She tried to act normal, but something was different, off. I could feel it in my gut. That quiet, instinctive shift you can't explain but can't ignore either. Later, around 2 a.m., I woke up and she wasn't in bed. I walked into the living room and found her curled up on the couch in the dark, phone glowing in her hand. She quickly turned the screen off when she noticed me. "Couldn't sleep," she mumbled. "Just scrolling." I nodded. "Come back to bed." She followed, eventually, but that seed of doubt, it was already growing. Over the next week, I became someone I didn't recognize. I started watching her more closely. Not in an obsessive way, at least, that's what I told myself, but carefully, silently, taking mental notes. Every smile, every absent-minded reply. Her phone was always face down now. She used to hand it to me all the time to play songs while we cooked. Now she guarded it like a vault. On Wednesday, I asked her how her meeting went. She blinked twice, too fast. "What meeting?" "The one you had at noon, with the client from Denver." "Oh, right, it got rescheduled," she said, brushing it off, already turning away. But I had checked her calendar that morning. She had nothing scheduled at all. She never lied like this before, not to me. And if she did, she was better at hiding it. That night, I made a choice I hated myself for. While she was in the shower, I opened her laptop. We shared a login. No passwords hidden between us, or so I thought. I pulled up her messages, nothing unusual. Then I saw the email draft folder. And there they were. Letters to him, unsent, but saved. Raw, emotional, passionate. "I wish I could spend the night with you and not sneak back like a criminal. I hate lying to him, but I can't stop thinking about you. I love you, Ethan. I think I always have." I shut the laptop and sat there in the dark, breathing like I'd run a mile. My hands were ice cold. She came out of the bathroom, towel in her hair, humming something soft. She saw me and smiled. "You okay?" I forced a nod. "Just tired." We lay in bed. She curled up beside me. I stared at the ceiling, blinking back rage, pain, confusion. Who was this person next to me? How long had she been someone else? On Friday, I called the PI again. I asked him to follow her next trip. She was flying out Sunday. Said it was a quick 2-day client workshop. He trailed her to the airport. She didn't go to the terminal she said she would. He sent me photos of her boarding a different flight. Destination? Not New York. Not even the same state. He followed her all the way to a coastal resort town. Then came the photos I can never unsee. Her and Ethan, kissing on a balcony, holding hands in a rented convertible, entering a spa together. There was no workshop, no client, just them, together, pretending they were something real. I didn't sleep that night. I stared at the screen until the battery died. I kept asking myself the same question. Why? Why throw away 8 years for a fantasy? What did he give her that I couldn't? And more than that, how long had she been living two lives? How much of our life was real, and how much was just filler between her escapes? The next few days were a blur. I went to work, made small talk, answered emails, but none of it registered. Every moment I wasn't pretending to function, I was back in my head replaying the images. Her fingers in his hair, the way she looked at him, that kind of softness in her eyes I hadn't seen in months, maybe even years. And the worst part, I started doubting myself. Had I failed her somehow? Was I too busy, too boring, too predictable? Had I missed the moment when we stopped being us? I hated that my first instinct was to blame myself for her betrayal. One night, I came home and found her cooking. Something elaborate. Pasta, wine, candles. The whole thing felt staged, like she was auditioning for a role in a movie called The Perfect Wife. "Surprise dinner," she said, beaming. "You seem so stressed lately. I just wanted to do something special." I stared at her, unsure how to respond. She poured the wine, talked about work, some new client she said she was excited about, but I wasn't listening. I was watching her lips move and wondering how many lies had come from that same mouth. Later, we sat on the couch. She leaned against me, her head on my shoulder. I asked her casually, "Do you ever think about us? About how we've changed?" She tilted her head. "Changed how?" "You know, like we used to tell each other everything. Now it feels like there's distance." She paused, just for a second. "We're just older. Bousier, but I still love you. You know that." I nodded, but I didn't believe her. Not anymore. The investigator sent me one final update. They checked into a cabin 2 hours north the previous weekend. Isolated. Private. In one of the videos, she was wearing my hoodie, the same one she used to steal when we first started dating. She was wrapped in his arms, laughing, drinking wine on the porch. That hit harder than anything else. Not the sex, not the secrecy, but that she brought me into it. My clothes, my memories, our rituals, repurposed for someone else. That night, I finally broke. I printed everything, the photos, the emails, the flight confirmations, every piece of proof I had. I laid it all on the kitchen table. When she came home, she barely had time to set down her bag. "What's this?" she asked, flipping through the papers. "Everything you've been doing," I said quietly. She stared at the pages, then at me. Her face changed from confusion to panic to resignation. "You went through my stuff?" I laughed. Couldn't help it. "That's what you're going with? That's your defense?" She sat down hard. "I didn't mean for it to happen." "I know," I said. "Most people don't. But you let it happen, over and over." She didn't deny it. Didn't even try. "I felt invisible," she whispered, "like I was just coasting through life. With him, I felt alive again." "And with me?" I asked. "What was I?" She didn't answer. That silence said everything. I didn't scream. I didn't throw anything. There was no dramatic fight, no slam doors, just two people sitting at a kitchen table, staring at the ruins of something they thought would last forever. "I don't even know who you are anymore," I said. She opened her mouth like she was going to say something, then closed it. "What do you say when you've dismantled someone's entire world?" "I'm sorry," she whispered, but it felt automatic, like muscle memory. I nodded. "I know you are, but that doesn't change what you did." I packed a bag that night. Just the essentials, a few clothes, my laptop, my toothbrush. I left the wedding photo on the dresser where it had always sat. Something about taking it felt wrong, like stealing from a grave. She didn't ask me to stay. She didn't chase me to the door. That part hurt more than anything. I moved into a small one-bedroom apartment downtown. Nothing special. Thin walls, leaky faucet, the kind of place you end up when your whole life explodes and you're just trying to survive. At first, I couldn't sleep. The bed was too quiet. No sound of her breathing beside me, no warm shape to reach for in the dark, just silence and the hum of street traffic outside. I stopped checking my phone. I didn't want to know what she was doing, if she was with him, if she missed me. I didn't want to give her space in my mind anymore, but she was still there, in everything. The way I brewed coffee, the way I folded shirts, the way I caught myself reaching out, forgetting I was alone now. Friends reached out. Some were shocked, some weren't. One of them said, "Man, she always looked like she had one foot out the door." That stung, but maybe they were right. Maybe I just didn't want to see it. Weeks passed. I went to therapy. At first, I didn't say much, just sat there. But eventually the words came. I talked about the betrayal, sure, but mostly about the slow erosion. The way love doesn't vanish in one moment, but fades like a photograph left in the sun, until one day you wake up and realize you're holding a ghost. I wasn't angry anymore. Not really. I was tired. I was grieving. Not just the loss of her, but the version of me that believed we'd always be okay. Then, one afternoon, I got a letter. Real paper, no return address. It was from her. 4 pages. She says she ended things with Ethan, that it wasn't what she thought it would be, that it felt empty without me, that she missed our laughter, our routines, our life. And then, the line that stayed with me, "You are home," and I walked out of it. I didn't respond, because sometimes love isn't enough. Because sometimes trust once broken doesn't heal its scars. Because sometimes the bravest thing you can do is walk away from the thing you wanted most. The days felt longer, emptier, like the world had lost its color and I was just moving through shadows. But slowly, ever so slowly, something inside me began to shift. I started running again. At first, it was just a way to escape pounding the pavement, trying to outrun the memories. But with every mile, I felt stronger, not just in my legs, but in my mind. I found a new rhythm. One morning, watching the sunrise from a park bench, I realized something. I was still here. I was still breathing. That was the first step. I reconnected with old friends. We drank cheap beer and talked about everything and nothing. I laughed again, real laughter, not the brittle kind I've been clinging to. I started journaling, not to relive the pain, but to understand it, to make sense of the chaos that had become my life. Page after page, I poured out my anger, my sadness, my hopes. It wasn't easy, but it was honest. And then, slowly, the past began to lose its grip. I stopped checking her social media. I deleted the photos. I unfollowed the reminders. It was like shedding a second skin. I was still me, but a version tempered by fire. One evening, a stranger smiled at me on the street. No promises, no expectations. Just a small moment of connection. And for the first time in months, I felt something new stirring inside me. Hope. This isn't a story about perfect endings. It's about broken hearts and healing scars. About learning to trust again, not just others, but yourself. Because sometimes the hardest betrayals teach us the most. And sometimes walking away isn't the end, it's the beginning. The pain never really disappears. It changes shape, becomes a quiet whisper instead of a scream. But it teaches you something important about strength, about courage, about yourself. I learned that love isn't about possession. It's about freedom, about respect, about knowing when to hold on and when to let go. I'm not the same person I was before. I'm wiser, harder to fool, and maybe most importantly, I'm kinder to myself. Because I know now that healing isn't a straight line. It's messy. It's slow. It's worth it. If you're listening to this, maybe you're hurting too. Maybe someone you loved betrayed you. Maybe you feel lost in the dark. But know this, you are not alone. And one day, you will find your light again. Thank you for hearing my story. Thank you for letting me be real with you. Because in the end, that's what we all need. A little truth, a little hope.